Somebody's got it, you have the screen up, yeah, okay.
All righty, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 12:03 PM. First order of business will be to the approval of today's agenda.
Make a move to approve.
All right, we have a motion. The second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And can we get the approval of the January 1st meeting minutes?
Jerry, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes. The minutes were excellent.
Okay, well, we'll let Andrew be the judge of that.
Were they amended when corrections were suggested? They have been amended, right?
Yes,
Okay, so, and I'm fine with it.
just for the record, they did spell my last name correctly, so it was excellent. That's why I said excellent.
For the
Are we
record,
considering that a second?
for the record.
All right, so.
Jerry,
Yep.
Jerry, for the record, you said January 1st? June 1st. Well, it's a difference.
Yep.
You're correct. Okay.
All righty, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll go down to the chair's reports. Just one slight deviation. I'm going to concentrate solely on the Long Island Railroad chair report. When Andrew and Randy are done, I'll turn it over to Lisa to give you a general overview of PCAC. I'm sure she has a couple of announcements that you'll find of interest. All righty, so Long Island Railroad. As you all know, the MTA fare increase recently took effect, and we lost a couple of what the MTA considered pilot programs that we fought to keep. Atlantic Ticket, which was replaced by City Ticket, and the 20-trip Peak Ticket. The MTA informed me that they heard very few complaints about the elimination of the 20-trip ticket during the public comment period. However, I've heard differently from the riding public since the elimination of this ticket was made official. Unfortunately, a vast majority of the complaints came from Long Island Railroad commuters. And without riders from both railroads being upset, it's extremely doubtful that we'll be able to get this ticket option restored. Although we are investigating how the people up in Metro North feel about this. Immediately after Labor Day, the Long Island Railroad implemented a new schedule, which was revised to reflect riders' complaints and concerns. While not everyone is happy with the new schedules, it did show that the Long Island Railroad is at least trying to listen to and address many of our scheduling issues. One item that remains unaddressed and that I'll continue to fight for is the issue of timed connections to Jamaica. While not so much of a problem during the morning rush, a missed transfer opportunity in the evening could result in riders to Port Jefferson or Oyster Bay waiting 45 to 60 minutes for the next train home. The Long Island Railroad management is hopeful that schedule changes will start an upward trend in customer satisfaction, as the most recent ridership survey results were extremely disappointing. There is still no word from MTA management as to when the contract for the M9As will be released. And this is a major concern as more rolling stock is needed to help eliminate crowding, as well as retire the existing M3 fleet of approximately 100 cars, which is rapidly approaching the end of its useful life. The last of the original orders should be delivered to the LIRR by the end of this year. But again, we don't have any additional rolling stock on order at this time. A couple of the MTA board members representing Long Island are looking for the MTA to appoint a permanent and separate Long Island Railroad president. Kathy Rinaldi has been doing an excellent job as interim president, but the concern is that asking her to run the largest commuter railroad in North America on a permanent basis, when you're already running the second largest commuter railroad in the country, is asking a lot of any one individual.
Jerry, you also have elected officials now.
Yeah.
I frequently have asked her, how do you sleep at night?
Well, I've been extremely impressed with Kathy's performance to date in the dual role and see a great benefit in having one person in charge of both, so that Long Island Railroad Metro North can easily share best practices. I feel the concern and request of my fellow board members is legitimate. You always have to worry about burnout when you have that kind of load on your shoulders. And that's basically it. Any questions on the Long Island Railroad? Yes.
Gary, there was one thing. I did attend the Far Rockaway with that new city ticket. When Debbie and I did take that train going back, we didn't wait that long, but it also gave an option if you want a Brooklyn train or an express train. What I'm seeing is there is more passengers on those trains. And I did attend that press conference at Far Rockaway, which was really well attended with the elected officials. And they did want me to send regards to the PCAC team. And thank you for keeping your advocating for the Far Rockaway community. On that.
It'd be a lot better if the station was closer to the end of the subway line, so it'd be an easier transfer. Now you gotta walk like 3 blocks, 4
Yeah,
blocks,
2 blocks.
5 blocks, okay. Yes, Stu.
Okay, so you mentioned that the remaining cars should be delivered by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So even with the receipt of those cars, will we be able to increase service from Penn Station?
No,
Right.
no.
So what are the plans?
If anything, they may be able to take some of those cars and, yeah, to make some 8-car, 10-car consciences. But only what? 2
And
dozen?
a dozen cars that haven't been put in. safety.
But it's
Less
about
than a dozen.
less than a dozen.
Maybe take some trees out.
Yeah,
So have they shared a plan to comply with the original, submissions for the opening of Grand Central?
No.
They talked, no, so are we taking a position? Which could be delaying the retirement of the other cars and restoring them or enhancing them.
well, they have no choice. They have to delay the retirement.
Right.
Everything's rolling right now. If they were to retire those 100 cars, you'd have to reduce service considerably.
But even with those, you still wouldn't have enough to increase no interest.
In fact, I don't know, it was yesterday or the day before, the Post actually ran an story on that. About the whole story about the commitment they were supposed to make during the cars and why hasn't it happened? And all I can tell you is that I'll keep pushing for it at the board meetings, behind the scenes and whatever, but right now,
Is it a Kawasaki issue?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think that was the QA QC issues on the on the M9s continued. But there were, remember in 2017, there were a lot of forces at play to change the capital program to redirect funding to the completion of the Second Avenue subway that resulted in that summer of hell. Right, so that they also have had something to do with the inability to direct money to purchase cars or to refurbish them. Perhaps it should.
I loves it so much.
So I understand they are in negotiations, but that's all they'll tell us at this time. So we'll definitely keep you posted. As we hear anything, we'll definitely let you know.
So Jerry, regarding after being over both railroads,
Yeah,
I thought that was temporary, so that's a permanent assignment.
well, that's the other thing. They still have given her the interim tag. They have not taken that off yet. So, but whenever you ask them, well, what's the master plan? Crickets, so remains to be seen. Yes, ma'am. Karen.
I'm curious as to what's the tipping point, what is it that makes the MTA decide to change the schedule again? Like, how many complaints is it? Because those complaints were from early in the year and now, I'm not saying people are fully adjusted, but now it's new change and I've seen the change and it's been extremely disruptive. And so it's almost if they could respond sooner and tweak things at the beginning of a change, it would be a lot more beneficial than waiting 6 more months. I guess they're trying to see how long things will take to calm down, but I think it just.
The initial game plan was to tweak, or for lack of a better word, as they went along. And early on, every couple of weeks, they would change consciences, they'd make some 8-car trains, 10-car trains, and 10-car trains, 8-car trains, depending on the ridership. They were listening to complaints. They did make some minor adjustments. This train will leave a few minutes earlier. This train will leave a few minutes later. Maybe this train, they will skip a couple of stops here or they'll add a couple of stops. So they were trying to analyze all the data that they had and then again, and respond to complaints. They're trying to keep as many people as possible happy, but basically the whole idea is if you make a change, well, you try and make 2 people happy, but you're still gonna have 1 person now that's gonna be unhappy. So it's just trying to maximize that. But again, if you saw the customer satisfaction report that was issued at the last board meeting, it was hideous. I mean, the numbers are way down in customer satisfaction.
Jerry,
Yeah.
the Long Island Railroad was created in 1834. And when the Jamaica Terminal was designed, it was designed for an across the platform transfer. And it worked well for 100 and 200, how 200 years. And goodbye. Get it back.
Yeah, that's, again,
Something that
it's,
wasn't broken. I wasn't.
you know, I'm looking at it as most of us, I guess, are from the consumer standpoint of this is what we're used to, this is what we want, why can't we get it? And the comeback from the railroad is choke points and you can run so many trains through at such a time. And now with the additional service to Grand Central, that's why they had to move the shuttle, you create a shuttle and create a separate platform. I'll admit, well, I've been a commuter advocate since 2001. I don't know how to run a railroad precisely. All I can do is tell them what the consumer, what the riders are unhappy about, and it's up to them to try and figure it out. So that's where we're at. They claim that, I mean, I keep pushing for these time connections coming home. Even with a 90% on-time performance, that means once every 2 weeks, your train's going to miss a connection in Jamaica. And if you're going to Port Jeff, or even some cases out by me, if you're on a Montauk branch, you miss your connection, you can hang out in Jamaica for 45 minutes to an hour. And after a hard day's work, that is not what you want to do.
You have to get a bar for you in Jamaica.
Yeah,
There is one, but it's a theater train.
yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay.
Are we getting any data yet on how passengers are adjusting? So I will say I'm not a Long Island Railroad expert. I have spoken to a few Long Island Railroad commuters who said that they've seen, a steady transition of passengers embracing Grand Central Madison now that's available and changing their habits and potentially, less concerned about restoring the old service because they're adjusting to the new system. Do we have any data on that?
No, they're constantly compiling data. They're constantly watching on everything. Grand Central service has come up a little bit, but it's still not to what, when they originally envisioned this, it's not where it was. I think they figured what was it, like a 60-40 split or something like that.
I think it was initially even more than that, and they had to go back
Yeah.
to adjust it.
And now I think it's more like.
Yeah, it's more like 70-30.
Yeah.
We have
Did we
been.
expect that for a project that took forever?
Right. We continue to get comments, complaints, concerns that come to the office that we share with the MTA. But we've also have, we had done a survey, a customer satisfaction survey of our own in April, that we launched in April and had just about 500 responses. And now with the new schedule, with people coming back, because there are the train.
You're right.
He's all right. With the train I was on the other night was really standing room only. We're about to talk about getting another survey out there to get people's input. And the Long Island Railroad does their surveys as well, but ours are more customer focused.
Yeah. And there's one other thing that's in the background that they don't talk about too much, but it is a consideration. They don't want to transfer too much service back to Penn Station because eventually Amtrak is going to have to take one of those tunnels out of service. It's desperately in need of renovation, restoration, whatever you want to call it. And they don't want to restore too much service to Penn Station and then in 6 months or a year or whenever Amtrak's going to get started on this, then have to turn around and tell people, oh, by the way, reducing service 10% and sending those trains over to Grand Central because of this. So it's a very delicate balance. As critical as I've been of the schedule makers over there, I certainly wouldn't want to have to do that job because it's a can't win situation. Yes.
You're talking about customer satisfaction. Right now, I am a customer who is very
We're
unsatisfied.
talking about the Long Island Railroad.
Well, can we talk about what's going on?
When we get to the next,
Okay.
yeah, we'll get to the next.
Andrew, this is your,
All right, well, actually,
But just happened.
Actually, Andrew's next on the agenda, so
That's a great,
great segue, huh?
great segue, yeah. So needless to say, there is an awful lot happening, not all of it good, but a lot of it is good in the subways and bus system. We have now had several rounds of service increases. In July on weekends, the G, the J, and the M were increased frequency. In August on weekdays, the C, the N, and the R had service increased, and the 1 and the 6 on each side of town began running every 6 minutes on weekends, which was pretty amazing. We're going to get more increases in December on the C, the N, and the R lines. Needless to say, this is not all running like clockwork, and there have been delays, and whenever there's work going on, trains are going fairly slow. And they've started to indicate that on the many apps that are available. Trains will be proceeding slower on various routes. They are looking to find a way to speed up trains by work areas. There are ways that can be done safely, and they are, I've been told, are really very much looking to do that, especially on weekends. In work zones where they're installing CBTC on 8th Avenue, the C trains really crawl by 34th Street and 23rd. I mean, it's just really slow. You'd actually be better on an adjacent line and then changing. You would actually save time. But we have more service increases coming. In December on weekday evenings, the C, the N, and the R are going to run every 8 minutes, and the G is going to run every 8 minutes. So this is good news. Obviously, the fare increase went into effect, and fares went up to $2.90. Weeklies went up by $1, and monthlies went up by about $5 or so. One of the good things that took place during the August 20th fare increase were if you are an Omni user and you wanted to use fare capping, which is really popular, it begun on the day that you first tapped, not a Monday through Sunday, because not everyone traveled that way. And that was something I had been pushing for as well. So I am really happy that if you begin on a Wednesday, that's when it starts. Wednesday to the following Tuesday. After 12 trips, the rest are free. Omni continues to expand rapidly, even though we were promised machines would be installed beginning in August in the subways, and that has not taken place. And I have not seen any machines in September, and we're halfway through September. So it could be a cubic issue, but I don't know. We're going to find out. We have a board briefing later today, so we should find out some things. In addition, there is a wheelchair user pilot taking place on M7 buses now, which I have seen a few people use, and it works rapidly. So the bus operator does not have to get out of their seat and assist somebody who uses a wheelchair into the wheelchair section. On these M7 equipped buses, you can just use a smart device or push a button and it will work for you. It will open up, and that will save time on loading and unloading. So we expect to see hopefully some success on that, and then it will spread to other routes. Now, we also have many more additional accessible stations. And I'm going to give you an example of how many there are and what a great geographic spread. In the Bronx, we have Bedford Park on the B and D, Gun Hill on the 5, 170th on the 4. In Manhattan, we have Dyckman on the 1, First Avenue on the L, Chambers on the JZ, 57th and 7th on the NQRW, Times Square Shuttle. In Brooklyn, Grand Street on the L, 8th Avenue on the N, Bedford on the L, 86th on the R, 59th on the N and R, Greenpoint Avenue on the G, Eastern Parkway on the 2-3, Avenue H on the Q, Livonia on the L, and Rockaway Parkway on the L. And in Queens, we have Court Square on the G, Astoria Boulevard on the NW, and Court Square 23rd Street on the E and the M. So
Andrew, what time frames?
these are done.
I know.
That's in about past year.
A year.
Yeah. They're doing 20 some odd a year at this rate.
Okay.
And if you want to reach 95% of the 472 by 2055, you got to do even more than that a year. Stuart,
Are we tracking whether these once placed in service remain in service? We've said at other meetings that they can't maintain.
by the way, Seventh Avenue and Park Slope on the F and G is about to open. Yes, that one has been long awaited. Yes, I think we do find out if they're not working.
I think they really need to track that, you know. They've had difficulty maintaining what they have now, seeing that they remain.
No, absolutely.
And we certainly find out at board meetings too.
Oh, yeah, we definitely hear it.
Yeah.
Part of what they're doing that's a little bit different than what's been done in the past.
Yeah.
Is that they're doing maintenance contracts with the installations so that they aren't relying as much on wait till it breaks, but to make sure that it's and that doesn't mean that it's not gonna break, that there aren't gonna be issues, but that they have somebody on call and able to go, as opposed to the shortage of people that has been kind of historic and able to. keep
Right,
them on.
and I'm aware of that, but we want to see that the
Yeah,
vendors we're contracting with are able to perform.
yes, absolutely.
And we've
Because we're
decided,
hearing dissonance that it's not happening.
And escalators are an issue too. I know
I was
on the 7 train, that's a big issue with the Third Avenue side that went in and went out, and they say that, well, you know, that's normal.
Even in Grand Central Madison, which is brand new.
Just about.
And we have.
Thank you so much. Jerry, I just want to add, I'm sorry, Trudy, I just want to add that there is a one station going to supposed to be open tomorrow. It's the East 149th on the 6th. That's supposed to be open. They're delayed because the inspection didn't go through with some issues with that. Yeah. On that.
I do want to just interject that we have our first presentation is at 12:30. So they'll be here shortly.
Trudy,
Okay, so the reason that I came glumping into here like this, it's going to be early, I was gonna be on time. I got a number 6, it was great, 42nd Street. I waited like 3 minutes, kept matching up, that's always been my problem when you have to wait for the express left. And the train went moving along. But until after 33rd Street. And then it started slowing down, slower than any local. We got to 23rd Street, and it's not, you can't get off because you're on the express track.
obvious.
And the train stopped for 4.5 minutes. I timed it, okay? Not only did I time it, but it just so happened that there were 2 people who I knew who were in the same car with me. And when I got on, they said, "Oh, you're going to the MTA. Let me tell you all my problems." So, right. And then nothing, just
No announcement?
sitting there. Finally, after 4.5 minutes, because one of the people I was with had a stopwatch and was timing it. The announcement came, "We are being held here because there is a delay at 14th Street and we cannot move." Period. Not the problem, not what it was. And one of the people who I was with said, "Huh, see what we're paying more fare now. You're not," they know, you know, that I have passed. And from 23rd Street down to here, because they were heading into Brooklyn. This is all I heard, and they were absolutely right. Because there was no reason given, and the train, once it started pulling out of 23rd Street, again, it went so slow between, and I know how long it should take, between 23rd and 14th, it was like barely moving. It was at least a 10-minute, for me, it was more than a 10-minute.
When this happens, if you can make note of the car number you're in,
I couldn't even see the car number because it was on I tried, believe.
I could find out,
Andrew, you know, I usually do, but all I am.
but I can still find out.
But all I am saying is it just so happened that I was with 2 people who are going, see, and now we're paying more fare. So when you talk about customer satisfaction, and frankly, it delayed me getting here, all told, between 10 and 15 minutes at least. But it was the other people that I was with who I'm going to talk, you know, try to find out what happened. But whatever it is, And we're once again at a point of not making announcements, you're shaking your head. Sister.
They don't, yeah.
Finally, after 4.5 minutes to announce we're here because there's a problem, not what the problem is, how long it might take or anything else.
Well, we also don't know what information they gave that conductors.
They should.
Need to find out.
Somebody should have transmitted information to somebody. I mean, and of course, since we're sitting, I can't even call you because internet doesn't work in the subway
Not yet, yeah.
So I was gonna call, I said, I'll call Andrew, let him know what's happening. And then I realized I can't even call you.
Okay,
So
I can find out for you.
No, but it's not that. I'm here and whatever I am talking about, this goes on. I mean, I got an earful from the two people that I rode with from 42nd Street until I got off here. That you wouldn't believe about all of
We gotta move on, but I will make note of that. I will also tell you that in the last 5 days, I have had delays of one sort of another, and I have had very thorough announcements as to why. So I guess it depends on who's in the train in front of you or who's on duty at that time to tell the conductor, but I'll look into it.
I mean, it doesn't, the delay.
We gotta move on because we're racing the clock here.
But anyway, I just wanted to give you an eyewitness report.
Okay,
Thank you.
we appreciate that.
Satisfaction.
Okay, we're gonna make a slight change in the agenda. Randy, we're gonna just hold you off.
Yeah, fine, yeah. We
All
are
right,
here, so.
12:30, and we do have a presentation. You want to introduce?
Sure, absolutely. So, very happy that, we've got, presentation on open data, which has come a long way. But the MTA has made a commitment to sharing more information, to providing a platform for people, everyday people like us, to find out more information about the work that's happening. We actually have hard copies of the presentation. And we have Andy and Lisa, who are going to give us a presentation and ask for some input. So we have them for 20-ish or so minutes, and then we have somebody else. Well, we have somebody else coming at 1, so to talk about resiliency. So without further ado, we're gonna let you go and let you go on. And thank you.
Sure.
Whatever works.
They're
for you.
reserved for you. Oh, really? Okay, nice. Can I grab one of these as well?
Yep,
Subway.
absolutely.
No,
Oh, they were.
I guess I can just look on the.
Oh, here. Give you him mine,
Oh.
as long as you give it back.
Turn around. We have it on our computer, so I can definitely see that. All right, glad to show this. Okay. All right, well, thank you all for inviting us. We're gonna share with you this presentation, which is basically the same one we gave at a board meeting 2 months ago. With some, I think so, 2 or 3.
Sure.
But I think it's an important topic, and so, we're happy to do this again and answer any questions you have afterwards. So first, if you flip to the next slide, whoever's flipping. The first thing to discuss is like, well, what is open data? What's the difference between open data and what the MTA has been doing for many years, which I think I would call like public data. We've been making data public for a long time. But open data is kind of like a better version of the public data is doing. It is obviously freely available. It's not locked down. There's no paywall, anything like that. It's machine readable and standardized, which is like a really key point. So we can put out a PDF with, we currently do put out PDFs that are thousands of pages. That is public. We are sharing the information, but it's not very easy to work with, right? You can't really download that into anything, you can't access it easily. It's going to require a lot of effort on the user's part to do anything with that information. And so open data really fixes that problem by putting it into like standardized tables that you can rely on. And that's part of reusable. You can go back to it a month later, and we're going to do our best to make sure that the data is still in that same format, whatever analyses you set up in Excel or computer program to do some calculation of data will still work next month because the data should be in the same format. If we go to the next page. Next page is any questions on open data versus public data and like what we're trying to do to improve what we currently have. Currently, I'd say a lot of what we put out there is still under the description of public data, and that's obviously something we're working on. Any questions on that?
transition. Okay. So here are some interesting pictures that Lisa found of the different sorts of folks who use open data. And
Only one is wearing a mask.
why the tech educator is the only one who's COVID aware, I'm not sure. But anyway, so we did some like user profile discussions to try to make sure that we weren't just kind of creating this program for a single type of user, right? We recognize there's a range of folks out there. Anyway, so, you know, PCAC, I think would probably fall closest to, you know, some government employee and nonprofit organization staff.
Where's like three or
There are a few
four
of
of
these.
those.
Yeah, right.
Maybe five.
We represent the curious customer.
All right.
It's the curious.
Curious customer.
I'll ask the question.
I mean, the way I see PCAC is, you know, accountability and make sure the MTA is transparent and listening to its riders. So that really could be a few categories on here. Anyway, we keep these in mind just to make sure that we're not doing this just for ourselves as internal employees or for really sophisticated software developers, but there's a range of people and users of this data. We can flip ahead.
Question?
Yes.
Okay, curious customer. But with what happened to me this morning, I assume you heard it. Would that fit into the category, would my situation, would it go into, what field of data would it fall into, or would it fall anywhere?
Let's let them show us what the fields are first, so that we can get there.
But I'm just wondering if you're saying you're satisfying a curious customer.
But let's see what let's let them show us what they've got, and then I think that will be a more readily understood response.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'd like to take that question at the end. It could be.
Yes, I'll leave it to you at the end.
Sure. I think it could be that maybe there's a particular issue someone's having as a customer and like they look on open data and they say there is or there isn't data to like describe find my problem here. That might be an opportunity for us to go back and figure out what data set we need to share so that can be tracked and corrected. This is like our like victory lap. Maybe we don't need to dwell on it here, but we have been getting some like really positive notes on social media about open data. We'd obviously like to see more of this, not just to continue to pat ourselves on the back, but it's a sign that people are actually like using and appreciating the data. It's the more like positive engagement we get around this, the more it's a sign that we're actually sharing stuff that's useful, that people are interested in. Moving ahead. And this is a list, it's a kind of intentionally small font, not expected to read all these things. But to give a sense of like how much data we are sharing. The best way to see all this is to go to the New York State open data site, which we have the URL for in a second. And like search for MTA and you'll find all these data sets. And so there's quite a lot here. This kind of represents the first big wave of data sets that were requested when this program was stood up a couple of years ago. And so we have worked through most of that list and put these all up there. But we can go through, if you flip through the next few slides, if we just highlight a few. Subway hourly ridership, mean distance between failures, bus feeds. You can see Shaul is including the way to find those online. Like I'd say a lot of the sets right now focus on performance, which is, you know, usually top of mind for folks. Like, you know, things like bus feeds and mean distance between failures gets to the heart of like, well, is the MTA product working well? Are trains and buses failing? Are they going as fast? Are they sticking to schedule, et cetera? We also have ones like the MTA permanent art collection. Like there's some here on procurement and capital. Obviously not everything is here. This is a work in progress and we're adding to it all the time. But this is kind of where we're at right now. Move ahead.
Eric.
Really? If we move ahead, this slide was meant to suggest some of the complexity of making this all happen. Excuse me. Sometimes the data set is like pretty easy to share. It's kind of like right on top and all we got to do is pick it up and put it out there. We've kind of done most of the easy ones. A lot of times someone will say, well, can the MTA provide open data on topic X? And it's true that like we must have that information, but doesn't always mean it's get to. What they're asking for is not raw data. They want something kind of calculated. It's going to require coordination between several of our departments. some of the data in those departments might not be in like a modern data format that's easy to work with. There might be manual steps, there might be QC that someone has to do. So some of these are easy, some of them are hard. Certain ones that are easy, we want to get out there as quickly as possible. The ones that are hard might take a little bit of work on our part. So I guess this is more like just kind of keep that in mind. For groups like PCAC, we definitely want to like, be as responsive as possible. Sometimes it's more challenging than others, depending what the ask is. Quick, next slide is about what we've done so far. Lisa, do you want to present this as like most of your efforts? Maybe you should take this one.
Sure. So as Andy mentioned, we put this at the board a few months ago, and it was really exciting this morning when I got to change the first line from 69 new data sets to 75. So since the board meeting, we published 6 new data sets. Also, since last year around this time, we have launched our site metrics.mta.info, which is kind of the front end on top of the open data itself. So how Andy talked about, we want to serve all different types of users. Some of you all may not care about actually accessing the raw data, right? You just want to see a line chart of how your train's performance has been over time. This is the site that's really meant for you and for you to explore the data more easily. Around that time, we redesigned the committee books for the railroads and New York City Transit to be just more readable. I think the old ones were large, lots of tabular data that should be digitized, right? And
Heavy.
yes, heavy. Heavy is a good word for it.
And too small.
Too small.
Like a font or whatever.
Yeah. So any information that was in there, you can now find online, which we find to be a huge benefit to the actual user. And yeah, we're working through other committee books as well. I guess the last point I'll mention here is that we are starting to automate some of our data set uploads. As someone who's not a super technical person, this has been a huge challenge to overcome. And so I'm really happy we have incredibly smart computer people on our team who can help us do this. And as we automate the data uploading every month, this allows us to work more to actually get new data sets up there instead of just spending our time doing processes that a computer can be taught to do. So
Yeah, the more automated, the more we can share, because like the effort for each one is eliminated or much. Third question.
When you were talking about that, so if I already had data up into a certain month, when it's uploaded, is it refreshing it or is it overriding it? Like, how does that work?
it's not overriding it, we just add to the
Adding it to it.
existing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I think in some rare cases, if there's like a correction we need to make, we would overwrite old data, but like only mention of making it correct and fixing.
So there's one report that I have to ask Metro for every single month. Of course, it's not in the book anymore. It's this report here.
On time
On West of
performance, Hudson.
West of Hudson operation. Remember this?
No.
What do you want us to add it to open data? Yeah.
There was, rather than have to constantly do spend whole years for it, I mean, just. You know, this.
It came up like 6 months ago and what was the issue? Someone mentioned North. That's gonna happen?
But it comes from, but they have the data, it comes from New Jersey Transit.
Right.
So, but they do produce this report like they used to have in
Yeah.
the board book.
It may have been added. We're gonna check.
Okay.
Do you have someplace in the data set that tells you how often the camera system in the subways is up and running versus a particular section is down?
You mean the security camera?
Yes.
I don't believe there's a data set on that. It's yeah. We just started for like a different project. So my team also doesn't just do open data. We do a lot of other analytics work with the MTA for a different project. We started looking at Faraday. We started looking at security camera, not the video, but like some of the data coming off it. Anyway, I only mention that because that's something we're starting to get into. And so maybe we could use the same data access to talk about what you're interested in.
I think that would be
Sorry, what's the specific request, security camera?
performance, uptime versus downtime, that sort of thing. I mean, it was just an ironic horror that in the shooting that took place in Sunset Park, those particular cameras were not working.
So the question, do you want to continue or do you want to take?
I think, you know what, like we skip through the rest of the slides really quickly.
And just give 1 second to wrap it up and then we'll ask some questions.
The portal, you know, we can stop here. I think we explained, this just shows what the data portal looks like for anyone who wants to go get the data themselves directly. If you skip the next slide, you see more of the portal, go to the next slide, so you can just search bar. This is a metric site that Lisa was talking about, that her team maintains, basically like the visualization of most of the open data sets. Most people just want to see this, they don't want to actually see the data. And I think that's it. Next slide is just URLs and how to get in touch with us. So I think we can pause there and just question.
All right.
Just a general question about the frequency of the.
Stuart was
Who's next?
Okay.
Patiently waited. So, just a general question about the frequency of the updates. So looking through the lists that are in the pamphlet and on the presentation and the recent upload, most of the data is age. Old. Is there a significant lag with when you're getting the information?
Age, how far?
It went 2010 all the way up to 2021, 22. I didn't see a lot of 23 things.
It'll say something to present, and so for any.
So how often do you get them months after? So if the data is from April, do you get it at the end of the year? Do you get it in May?
Most of the time, it's the month after.
Yeah.
Some agencies report on a 2-month lag, and some data sets are updated daily, so it just really depends.
So these dates that are here.
I think that's from how far it goes back.
Right, but I didn't see, if this is the list of the 96. Okay, so it's the start of the database.
Start of the database.
And there's a few that we've archived, like we don't do like turnstile data anymore because we have a better source for it. Cut that off, so that one won't be updated, but that's a good thing. So there's a few things that like are kind of legacy, but for the most part, we update them with the board cycle or whatever's appropriate for that data set.
So then the year that's here, let's say for MTA accessorized ridership beginning 2016, it's continuing.
I think that particular one we're working on now, right? Yeah.
Stuart is asking, not how far it goes.
How frequently
back,
do you
but
get-
How far it goes forward.
Yes, right.
So for the accessorized ones, yeah, we've gone through a huge overhaul of those data sets so that we are able to update them. When we first started this program a year ago, they were in formats that we didn't have access to internally. So I think ridership and ride time are the two ones left that they'll say to present, they're not, but all other of those accessorized data sets are updated monthly.
And we're
Yes,
fixing those last two, like as.
and I think one thing I'll note is on the open data portal, you can view the metadata and it will say how often the data set is updated. So if you are curious, it will say whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, or annually.
Great, thank you.
I was just curious, what's the level of detail of the available data set? What's the level, is it aggregate, like I'm just curious, or is it depending on what type of data it is?
So it really depends. So like customer level, probably not like individual customer for like privacy reasons, we wouldn't share that, right? Certainly wouldn't share that. It kind of, in terms of like how detailed it could be, we're kind of looking for feedback from the public, from groups like PCAC. Like if you'd like more detail and it's not gonna expose private information, well, then that's probably something we could do.
Oh, I didn't mean personal information, I just meant the person that's going to the train, I'm just making something up, the person that rode the bus, or is it like? How many people rode a bus in an hour or in a day, like that's what I'm just kind of the level.
I mean, it really could be. So we report, to take ridership as an example, we report a like system-wide subway ridership number every day.
Okay.
We also do an hourly subway ridership by station.
Okay.
Obviously, we could go every 5 minutes, but like at some point, it's like, where do we cut off that we don't need more detail than that? But like, you guys tell us what is useful, and as long as it's not, doing something inappropriate with private information, we can provide you more.
Fair enough.
Now can I
Right.
ask? my-
Yeah, one, just make sure they're finished up. Okay. All right, go ahead, Trudy.
Thought I was next, but that's okay.
Next,
Okay, I am looking at something that says mean distance between failures. I am assuming that what happened to me and my whole train that I was on and my friends will somehow eventually go and get into that.
No.
That's,
Where will it go into? Okay, where will it go?
I didn't catch the details of the story. What was
The
the?
story was sitting in a train, sitting in a station without any explanation for 4.5 minutes, and then going at practically, I could walk faster than the train was going for another 2 stations. And where would that fit in if it's not, I mean, that was a failure as far as
I mean,
anybody.
communication.
So there is a, one sorry, open it now. Service alerts. I don't know if the other that's coming.
I don't see that in here.
So we're working on it. So there currently have like an automated system where like we'll send out on social media and other sites like service alerts. we're gonna make an open data set soon, at least they're working on it.
But this was not a service alert, this was no alert.
Right, but it should have been a service alert too.
Will there be something that if I as a passenger can find out how many other people suffered the same kind of situation?
I don't know that.
We don't know if it was a failure, Trudy.
Because the whole thing is.
It wouldn't be that kind of failure.
And this
Could have been a sick passenger on a train in front of you.
Who live with data. Is it data or data? I always.
It basically train delay, but it wouldn't be broken down by what your specific train was.
But it should.
And then it should be a communication if the timeliness of alerts also.
What does that do for making, besides seeing that it happens a lot? What also does the data do for hoping to correct it or making something else?
Just
happen?
tracks it. They're not gonna.
They're just tracking. That's all they're doing is tracking.
But it
It's just subject to death already. No, come on, let's move on to something else.
But can I ask, who looks at what you're talking about?
So
Can
certainly.
I make one point
Well,
here just regarding the topic? I agree that as a rider, we should be notified, but I guess I'm more tolerant. As complex as the system is, if they told me that there was a delay at 14th Street, for me, that's, people are trying to figure this out real time. And they may not have all the details. So, okay, there's a delay at 14th Street. I'm creeping along. So I guess there ought to be some expectation of the reality of, because I don't want somebody spending their time trying to tell me the exact answer. I want them to fix the problem so I can get on about where I'm going. So I just think that we ought to take that into
I
consideration.
guess you don't ride New York subways much.
I have to get from Grand Central, and Walter and I were on the train. I'm just saying, I'm probably more.
Okay, well, all I'm telling you is not just in this one car of this one train, whatever it is, I'm just asking how will this data, which eventually will be fed in as a miscommunication or not delay or something. What happens after that? I can look at it then and say, I'm now in the data system.
I think that part of the second part of it is, how does the information, when it's collected, inform change at the MTA or next steps or improve process?
What does it do for the customer?
But Lisa-
Well, that would inform process changes.
What you're saying is an element of what Trudy was saying, and that is, so if your office is the data collection point,
Right.
is there another unit or other units that are actually analyzing the data? In her case, it may end up as the run was over its required time and shows a train that wasn't on time overall. You may not see the granular delay on the line or on the ride, but the question is, you're providing the data sets that you're getting from different units within the authority. But are there other units analyzing that data and sharing that? And
Answer that is absolutely for sure. Yes, there's lots of teams at the MTA who are looking at our internal data and trying to fix it. They see instances like the one that Trudy described. And are trying to make that less frequent in the future. The idea of open data is to start sharing some of that externally so that groups like this one and anybody else can also start looking at these things and asking questions and.
If this is more raw data, but are the analyses being shared in any form? It's just internal.
Yeah, people look at lots of different metrics.
No, I mean to the public.
What we have is currently on the metric site and on.
it's not really his department.
That's what I'm saying.
Now, what's?
Sure, I quite understand.
Stu and I are saying the same thing in different ways. Once you get the data, the information,
They're just.
and then it goes to some other office at the MTA saying that there are X number of delays on the number 5 or the number 4 or whatever. And they've been happening with a great deal of frequency. Then what, I think what you're asking is then what happens and who does it go to?
How's it used to drive performance?
Well,
You're not doing the
I
analysis.
think you got this backwards.
No,
He's collecting data
I don't
from
have-
all these various sources.
absolutely.
So they already have the data before he gets it.
Right.
But it's raw data. It's not a final analysis.
No, but I'm just saying it's,
My question is, okay, who else is using the raw data and analyzing it, do they present that in any public forum?
Is your,
That's Trudy's
is your question and Trudy's question, what happened that caused the delay, or what happened in that the communications wasn't proper?
Both,
That's her question.
both. My question is both. But I, as a customer, want to know, are a lot of, is this the common thing? Is this happening all the time? This kind of 4.5 minute delay sitting in the station or whatever? How do I, as a customer, as a rider, then get, I'm using the terminology, which I hate calling it a customer, but that's the terminology you now use. So how do I, as a customer, then find out
You don't.
if this happens all the time and what is being done about it?
I think the best information we have currently would be our subways delays data, right?
Yeah.
That tracks and gives it a categorizes every subway delay as part of the OTP calculation that is public. And so you would be able to see there how often are delays of the type that you have.
Okay, then my second question, and what is being done about it?
That is a question, I think, for the board to ask or to like press, internal managers on. That's not really, open data is to share what we have. I think what's being done is a question for management.
Well, once you share it, where does it go then? It goes to a department.
It goes to everybody.
It goes to the database. So whoever he has no
It's the
clue
point,
who's gonna access it.
He's a collection.
He's a collection, right?
And he's
Collection.
displaying it for you to analyze.
the point of open data is to have greater transparency and provide a platform for the information that currently was not available in this kind of shareable format to be shareable, so that more people can see it, analyze it, look at it, and utilize it for a variety of purposes, including analysis that we might want to use for reports, things that we want to look at, and things that all of the characters and caricatures in the earlier slide use for various purposes, including academics.
Yeah, I think the main point of the whole presentation is not so much what people are doing in-house with it, it's that this information is now available to us, the general public. And then we can look at the data. And then if we have any questions, then we ask the questions after we look at the data. So basically, he's just trying to say, we're putting it out there for you. Here's how you can access it, look it over, but then he's not the solution. He's just the data collection. You have to go elsewhere.
In a big way.
In a big way, yes, in a very big
Not
way.
to minimize the amount of work that's gone into this. It's been tremendous.
Yes, I have a different question.
Okay,
Because I'm looking at this data and I'm very pleased, because I know we discussed this in the past about elevators. But I want to add something what Andrew said about cameras. I'm glad we're talking about cameras at stations, but we also need to make sure the cameras on the elevators are also tracked too. So let's not forget about that too, because you have it on the list, data, and I actually understand data, not like Star Trek, Andrew. I know you were thinking of it. Just trying to wake it up a little. Let me just say this, because I see the data mentioned in certain pages about Metro North, Long Island Railroad, and the subways. Can we also make sure that the cameras are also checked? Because safety, and we have certain people do something inappropriate in there, and that's all I'm gonna say from that point. So can we just make sure?
So we're looking for like camera uptime for the elevator.
Yes, yes.
And Staten Island Railway as
Since we're
well.
also talking about Omni. How is Omni doing with their data, if you are starting that data too?
In terms of like Omni usage.
Yes, including reduced fare, which we have test car Omni testers, like someone
I'm
could
gonna ask very soon, I think by the end of this month, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, tomorrow, I'm familiar.
We should be releasing data on MetroCard versus Omni usage, so you'll be able to see.
That's great.
Yes.
So like with B&T, we have Easy Pass and those told by mail.
How about MetroCard versus Omni versus turnstile jumping?
Yeah, that kind of like.
I'm just saying, I know you know, I'm just sharing, but I just had a mess with you. Thank you.
Sure.
So we're about at the end of our time with you, but we will collect suggested data sets and other information. And we will be the central collection point there. But we will share with you the presentation, which includes the links to the website, so that you can all look and play around and see what's out there and see if there's other things that you would like. I think it's great that Omni versus MetroCard is launching tomorrow. You heard it here first, guys.
Breaking news.
Noted news, right? Yeah, we will. And we, as a team have found this to be really helpful. We're really thrilled to have been part of an early group of, caricatures and stakeholders who were part of the conversation for the last year or more. And we're really supportive of the work that's happening. And thank you very much for it. So after you have all had an opportunity to look at what's online, email to us the any suggested additional data sets and questions that you may have. Okay.
Can I be recognized for just a sec? This is Stuart.
All right, Stu.
Just a quick question and then a longer comment. I'm looking very quickly at your two websites, metrics, mta.info and the state of New York Gov. And I see top line data. I presume that there's more granular data someplace on the website. Is that right?
Which data set are you thinking about?
Like I'm interested in delays. I'd like to see delays on a train, per train basis. I want to see if there's a code or a description of the delay, the time, the amount of delay and so on. All I see is top line data that shows me the number of delays and so on.
What is the most granular we do on subway delays?
That's my,
That's an example. I think kind of getting what.
you just summed up.
Yeah.
what I was-
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think one thing we're hearing here is that like not only just like whole new areas, we want like security camera uptime. We don't have anything of that at all. Another ask would be, well, what you have now, but how about more granular? It would be like a perfectly good request for us to like go take back and work on. So wherever these kind of come up, whether it's train delays or ridership or something else, we would like to hear where you guys would like better or more detailed information. We can take that back.
Is there just,
We'll collect that information.
Right.
We'll get that to you.
is there just a general dashboard of the key points when you go on your site?
How do you mean the key point?
Well, like
Yeah, we-
like delays and the cameras working there. Because the problem with data is you get so much of it, it's useless. And so there ought to be what I would consider an executive summary of, since it's for the public, what does the average person want to know in a snapshot?
I would love to know what the average person wants to know. We could.
That's part of what we're
That'd be
gonna do, but we have to cut.
Yeah, all right.
Unfortunately, because we have.
All right,
Yeah.
so
So that.
Right. May I just-
No, Stuart, I'm sorry.
so we have to cut this
move
off. We
on.
have to get to our next speaker.
Please feel free to email us if
Okay.
you have any thoughts or other questions.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
We
sir.
did pack it in today, but we thought this was really important.
Okay, thank you so
Just like keep the lines open. We want to hear what you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
May I just make one quick comment, which is you'll.
Wait, Stuart, you can, but
Sure,
wait, no,
move it to
sorry,
the
we have
next-
we have to move on.
No.
But please send us, you can send us your comment. It's a member.
We
Okay.
wants to, who is that?
Stuart, that's it.
So much time.
All right,
Eric.
ladies and gentlemen, just so that everybody's clear. All right, so this gentleman's gonna do his presentation from 1 to 1:30. At 1:30, we're gonna have a hard stop because we have to do the Metro North report, and then we also have to have our election of
Extremely.
officers. And then there's a hard stop at 2:00 because the board members here have a board member briefing at 2:00. So so if we have to cut people off, we're not trying to be rude, but we're on a very tight time schedule. And that being said, Lisa, can you
Yes,
introduce our presenter?
right, so we're very happy to have Eric with us today. At several of our council meetings, there have been questions on what is the MTA doing about resiliency and sustainability? And as you, many of you know, when Kara first came in, she and Bradley worked on a sustainability and resiliency report. That still gives her some nightmares, but that came out as an op-ed earlier this year. But we've had the pleasure of meeting with you and your team and wanted to hear more, particularly as Climate Week is next week. And so much is happening in your world and ours. So
Absolutely.
great. We have a presentation.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
great. You're gonna control the slides, Karen?
Yes.
Okay, great.
It's just
Um,
voting.
All right, well, while the PowerPoint is firing up, my name is Eric Wilson. I'm the Vice President for Climate Resilience and Sustainability Planning within C&D. I've been with the MTA for about a year and a half now. And I am really honored to speak with you all this afternoon. What I would like to share with you is our climate sustainability framework, certainly on the dawn of Climate Week, which starts next week. I think it's a very timely conversation to bring up right now. We did share the sustainability framework with the MTA board back in Earth Day, which was in April of 2023, where we released this framework. Why don't we go ahead and get into it now that the presentation is fired up. I think it's important to recognize that nationally, greenhouse gas emissions come from a variety of different sectors. But the largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions is really the transportation sector nationally, with more than a quarter of national greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide. I think you skipped.
Does that include shipping? Excuse me.
It does include shipping, but really the vast majority, according to the US EPA, the vast majority of those greenhouse gas emissions related to transportation are single occupancy vehicles.
Yeah.
Not airplanes.
Not airplanes. It's single occupancy. But airplanes are a large, and individual ships are also a large component, but an aggregate nationally, most of it is single occupancy.
You're saying nationally, so it's not internationally.
It's not internationally, it's US EPA. This is sort of disaggregates among transportation modes. This slide, really illustrates how greenhouse gas emissions are differentiated by passenger mile, with ride hail on the left, all the way down to subways on the right, and just how different transportation modes are in terms of greenhouse gas.
And the 4, 5, and 6 are even greener.
Even greener.
Right.
What is that first column? I can't see.
Uber.
It was right.
The first column is ride hail.
Yeah.
So this is like ride share services like Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
And taxis. And part of the reason why they have higher greenhouse gas emissions is because of the idling time that they have in between rides. So all of that's counted as part of their aggregate.
Cruising around
greenhouse
waiting for
gas.
riders.
That's right.
Yes.
They have even more than single occupancy.
Even more than the single occupancy vehicle, which goes from point A to point B. Transit also has other benefits, certainly with land use. If everyone were to own a car in New York City, we would need a lot more parking than we currently have. This is from a study back in 2010 that looked at 150 square feet per space, which is the typical size of a parking space. If car ownership was at similar rates as the rest of the country, we would need a lot more land area for parking. Next slide. So, in terms of the sustainability framework, we really wanted to take this opportunity to quantify the greenhouse gas emissions benefits of transit services. And in order to do this, we used an American Public Transportation Association methodology that looked at these 4 different factors to quantify the transit benefits to climate emissions. The first one is called the mode shift effect. This is getting people out of cars and into transit. This is pretty straightforward. There's one called the upstream effect, which looks at the greenhouse gas emissions associated with the production and the transportation of fuel that's used by vehicles. There's the congestion effect that looks at the performance of the roadway if transit were not to be around. And the land use effect, which is a really significant contribution, where all of the land uses that we have are much more efficient and unlock other sustainable transportation modes like biking and walking, and therefore reducing the amount of car dependence that would be necessary in other kinds of environments. So next slide. So aggregating all these factors, we estimate that the MTA avoids more than 20 million metric tons of carbon emissions. And we looked at, again, to the US EPA to see what that means. And they estimate that this is roughly the amount of carbon absorbed by a forest equivalent to the size of Indiana. About the same emissions from 51 billion miles driven by a typical car, or the emissions from generating electricity used in 3.9 million homes. It's really huge. The MTA and the transit services that we provide are a critical, certainly statewide, but even nationally in terms of greenhouse gas emissions reduction, just the value of transit. So, I want to open up with the sustainability framework, just really underscoring how much our customers and the people who use transit are really partners in the climate.
And how much will this change when we are all electric bus fleet?
Yeah, so we'll go even up a little bit further. Yeah, actually a lot further.
And how much will it change for when we get congestion pricing?
Yeah,
What'll be the effect? Have you looked at the effect of congestion
we
pricing?
haven't looked at the effect of congestion pricing, but we do plan on updating this every year. And we'll take that into account going forward after it's implemented.
But you're not looking now for what it might be or.
We wanted to base it on ridership numbers. And so really that's what this is. It's sort of more of a backcast rather than a forecast.
You're taking questions now.
I,
Let him continue.
this is the only time we've done this, is too hard.
Yeah, I mean, why don't I keep going?
Look at this slide, though.
All right, yeah.
So the branches of the Metro North that are not electrified, or maybe at one time were electrified, like the Danbury branch. Are there plans to even further reduce the metric tonnage by re-electrifying or electrifying branches?
Yeah, so electrifying definitely has sustainability benefits. I know some of those projects are being evaluated now in the 20-year needs.
Right.
There's a variety of different technologies that we think could even move sustainability benefits faster, like the implementation of dual mode locomotives, to get big sustainability benefits even faster than electric.
And I think
So we're looking at sort of it all.
push that too.
Yeah.
And this agenda here, also with your fleet of MTA vehicles or transit authority vehicles.
Correct. You mean non-revenue fleets?
Correct.
Yeah.
The city and the state are moving towards all electric fleets by a certain time period.
So stay tuned.
Right.
We've got some.
That'll help drive the numbers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yes, please.
Sure. So thinking about electricity production, does the MTA have solar panels or wind,
Some places.
commands to?
Some
Places to generate electricity.
Okay.
I'll get there. Yeah, let me keep going and we can come back to that question. That's a great question.
All that thought.
Yeah, definitely hold that thought. So, all of this to say, we're already part of the climate solution. There's things that we could do even better. Next slide. And I want to make sure and underscore that we have to navigate the sustainability transition in a way that doesn't undermine the reliability, safety, and performance of our services. Because at the end of the day, if we look at big picture, it's transit riders who are the green solution. And we need to make sure that those services, continue and that they're affordable and that they're reliable. Because, big picture, we don't want to sacrifice that as we make some of these other transitions to reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions. So next slide. So I always start our sustainability framework with that framing, that our first component to this strategy is really to sustain existing riders and continue to grow ridership. That's the most sustainable thing we can be doing for the region, for the state, and for the country. Next slide. That said, we are setting a goal to achieve our own emissions reduction of at least 85% emissions by 2040 from a 2015 baseline of emissions. So in 2015, the MTA across all operating agencies emitted just over 2 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalents. By 2040, we want to reduce that by 85%. And we have a number of different strategies that I'll just touch on now to achieve that goal. Next slide. So 3 different strategies to achieve that emissions. The first, updating facilities, reducing the amount of fossil fuels and energy consumption that we use in all the different buildings that the MTA maintains. 2, transition fleets. This has already come up a couple of times between buses and locomotives and non-revenue vehicles. It's very important that we really think about moving on from fossil fuels and looking at alternative fueling or electrification or even other propulsion strategies for fleets. And then 3rd, use energy efficiently. Next slide. So some examples of updating facilities. So, you know, it's really mind-blowing to me how much real estate the MTA manages, over 16 million square feet across thousands of assets. These are all the depots and the shops and the yards and the maintenance buildings, all these different facilities that we have within New York. And then beyond the boundaries of the city of New York. And there's many opportunities to achieve energy efficiency gains and, you know, reduce reliance on fossil fuels within these buildings. So
16 million?
16 million square feet. Yeah. So a lot of floor area. So there's been great progress that our colleagues have done to date, and just wanted to share some of these examples with you as we go forward. On the left, there's a photo of a worker working on a Metro North car, and you can see above that worker, there's kind of it's a radiant heater above that individual. Previously at Brewster Yard, there had been an HVAC system that was blowing hot air into the workspace. And every time a train would come in, a big garage door would open and let all that hot air out. And so what this radiant heat system does is it's much more strategic and focused to heat, you know, where the worker is actually stationed, so that it reduces the amount of heat that's wasted and results in big energy efficiency gains for this particular facility. You know, Bridges and Tunnels has installed LED lighting at all of its facilities. With big energy efficiency gains. And, you know, to your point about solar voltaics, we are starting to experiment. This is an example up in Harmon Yard on the Hudson line in Metro North Territory. The idea here, you know, really to start collecting solar power to augment the amount of energy that's coming in from the electrical grid, reduce the amount of energy that's coming from the electrical grid to power that yard. But also provide an element of energy redundancy should there be a brownout or blackout surrounding that. So we are definitely starting to experiment with that.
Geothermal?
We're also experimenting a little bit with geothermal, a little bit of cooling using geothermal stations. Yeah.
And Coney Island terminal.
Patient, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. That's Stillwell.
Sure.
Yeah. Next. There's solar panels that.
And they're in the Stillwell station roof.
Oh.
So to your point earlier about transitioning fleets. So we are looking at, we have obviously vast numbers of fleets and different kinds of vehicles. We are looking at all of them to reduce emissions associated with our fossil fuel fleets. For example, on the left here is a light duty non-revenue vehicle. We are working with transit, the railroads, bridges and tunnels, in particularly light duty fleets, non-revenue fleets, because these are some of the easier ones to decarbonize. And we have a goal to completely decarbonize these light duty non-revenue vehicles by 2035, with medium and heavy duty vehicles by 2040. So buses are in that medium and heavy duty category, along with non-revenue vehicles. That's of course the star of our show in terms of emissions reductions. And a very exciting.
Revenue vehicles?
They are revenue vehicles, but we're looking at revenue and non-revenue vehicles for the medium and heavy. Sorry to be confusing, but buses are really the big main attraction here in terms of emissions reduction. And that's an active program. On the right is an example of a work locomotive at transit. And we're looking at ways, many of these are diesel powered. even though they're, underground, because they need to be able to work when the third rail is powered down. So we're looking at ways with transit to, look at hybrid or lower emissions alternatives to the current diesel work locomotives. And then the final category is use energy efficiently. The first point here is that the MTA is an energy efficiency or an energy intensive operation. I think that's news to no one here. We use a lot of electricity, and we will use a lot of electricity because that's how, most of our fleet moves around. So, but there are things that we can do to reduce that amount of traction power and sort of use it more wisely. And these are all things that we're looking at now. So in the center is an example of a battery storage project that we're looking at to capture regenerative braking or to capture braking energy from subway trains, store it, and then re-release it onto the third rail during periods of peak demand so that we're not drawing as much electricity during times when the grid is stressed. This is still an experimental project, but it is something that we're looking at to reduce the amount of traction power that we draw from the grid. On the right is an example. This is a photograph of a remote control of a heater. So in the wintertime, transit has these heater coils that run along the third rail to keep the third rail from freezing. Previously, they used to go out in the beginning of winter and turn on these heaters and just leave them on all winter until the end of the winter and then turn them off, which is a lot of energy. And so we've been installing over the past several years these remote controls to enable, folks to be able to switch them off when it's warmer, during warmer periods of the winter, and then turn them back on again during periods below. So that there's more control over this third rail heater. Sort of simple technologies like this that allow us to save a lot of energy. Saving that energy results in greenhouse gas emissions gains. So my last slide here, I just want to share with you all, we are planning a lot of climate action steps over this year. So we did release this climate sustainability framework back in Earth Day, which is in April, late April of this year. There will be further details coming out in the 20-year needs assessment, which is going to be coming out in October, on both climate sustainability, which is greenhouse gas emissions, as well as climate resilience, which is climate risk mitigation in October. We are releasing what we're calling a clean construction program. So in addition to all of these strategies that I just talked about here, which really relate to operational emissions, we're trying to reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions associated with MTA construction projects. And so we're going to start by tracking something called embodied carbon, which is all the sort of carbon associated with construction, like concrete and steel. So we're going to be starting that in October and having an event on October 16th. And then finally, releasing a climate action plan, which has more details about these strategies in December. So it'll be a busy year for us on the climate team. So thanks again for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.
Time for one question?
Yeah.
In percentage terms, how much of the effort is devoted to sustainability versus resilience?
Versus what?
Resilience.
Yeah, I don't know if that's, I would say that there's sort of different teams focused on each, and 100% of the time of those individuals is focused on those respective issues. So I have a small team. There's folks focused on climate resilience and risk mitigation. There's folks focused on greenhouse gas emissions reduction.
We can't tell which ones. What do you think is more important for the MTA? Just based on what you know about the operations.
I think they're equally important. Given the climate crisis, I think it's incredibly important that we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but I also think it's very important that we continue to monitor climate risks and implement mitigations.
Dominance.
Good answer.
I would like to call it blanket gas. Greenhouse is such a pretty word. Blankets smothering the earth.
Carbon emissions, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, time for one or two more questions. Good?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're looking forward to hearing more about the October 16th event.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Great. And if,
Great.
if you have any other activities planned for Climate Week.
Yeah, definitely. Will.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you to our councils for asking for it too.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so getting back to the agenda, next up would be Randy with the Metro North. Here's your report.
And we thankfully, we don't have the problems Jerry has in Jamaica.
That's all right. It's
No.
true story.
I mean, I don't know, 20 history. We have problems with saying. We had a very nice trip to the Highbridge facility. A good number of our members were able to attend, which was nice. They treated us very nicely, took us around, explained what they do there. I was just amazed that the train that we rode in on was a train of MA cars because it was scheduled for maintenance. They pulled us into the barn and the next car, they already started taking apart the seats and there's a top to bottom cleaning. I mean, I never imagined they were doing that, but they do. So it's something to be happy about for our customers. They have a clean environment to ride in. Really not much else. I mean, it's all in the report here and we are running up against the hard stop. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Okay, so I'll
Any
give back my
no
time.
questions?
I want to thank Randy for his help last week on an issue with New Jersey Transit. Helping to get a schedule posted for, it was personal, but going out to the Meadowlands on Monday.
But for other people too.
But for other people too.
I was just gonna say.
There were no, the New Jersey Transit schedule had no trains going out to the Monday night football game. And it said, no, it said there were no trains, but there were trains.
Of course.
So Randy was able to make some phone calls and we spoke to somebody who said, all you have to do is go through these 10 steps on the website to get a static schedule to get to Secaucus. But just go to Penn Station and get on any train. And yeah, I think we convinced them that that's a really bad idea.
Actually, they wanted us to, go up to the Port Authority to take a bus out there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then,
It's New Jersey trains.
and then, but I said, I think on September 11th at rush hour, combining several thousand jet fans with several thousand commuters is a terrible idea. So within an hour, they had the trip planner updated and the website updated. And I've spoken to a few people at the MTA about this to thank them, but they all said, wouldn't it be nice if there was if they had the same apps and the same integrated service delivery that we had? And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice if you had their schedules on your app? But I didn't say that.
Yes.
Yes.
When Rogers had his
Yeah,
incident,
yeah.
so you saw it happen in
The whole
person.
thing.
See, the one thing that in our conversation with this woman, Lisa, who was really a very nice person, is that she says, you'll have to call customer service. So I said, well, can we have the name of a manager to speak to rather than just an ordinary person there? Because I never had much success with the people who just answer the phone. I told them, you'll have to go that way. So anyway, Lisa took care of that part.
I didn't actually call them.
Oh.
The next time my phone rang, it was a Daily News reporter. And I said, I'm not talking to you about anything until you write about what's happening at New Jersey Transit. And by the time I got off the phone with him, they fixed it. So, yeah. But that leads actually to a segue of the report that we sent you all to take and ask for your input on. Because one of the things we call for is that kind of information sharing. So that because the MTA apps are superior.
Thank you.
To those from other transit systems in the region. And they are, in terms of being able to get information. There's still the beta testing My MTA app still has vast room for improvement, but it's
Vast
still
room.
better than not being able to find anything on another app at all. So,
I know.
you know, we do hope that you'll take a look at the recommendations and we thank you for the input that you've already provided. And there are a couple of new things that are in that report, including, Jerry talked in his report about looking forward to, a restoration of some kind of a 20-trip ticket. Given the conversations that we had with the MTA and their, I'll use the word reluctance, intransigence, to move in that direction. Ryan suggested, that, well, what about a same kind of discount on a 10-trip peak ticket that's offered on a 10-trip off-peak ticket? And that just made so much sense. So that is a substitute recommendation that we put into the report.
You're gonna bring it up at the committee meetings next week or
Well,
not?
we've sent the report to you all, and we want your feedback. So
That brilliant report.
and so this is written by Ryan as our author and Kara.
Well,
And we've had input from our brilliant council members. And we met from and we met with the MTA, but really putting it together and making this his own is Ryan. And I also am gonna take this moment to thank Ryan for all of his work. He's leaving us at the end of this month. But before that,
I graduated, yeah.
yeah, he's
graduated.
At the same time.
and but before we let go, we're gonna have an event to release the report, so we'll get that information to you, but first we want to make sure that it incorporates what you all want in your thoughts.
Just one housekeeping,
No.
one housekeeping.
Oh.
Randy, you done?
Yes.
Because you kind of just segue, Lisa kind of just
Randy
took, I
said-
want to be sure Randy's done.
Only because Randy said.
Any Metro North questions?
I just want to make a comment. You mentioned when they pulled in for the barn, they already began cleaning. So I haven't been on Metro North since before the pandemic, but recently I've traveled on different lines quite extensively and the trains are very clean. I do more traveling on Long Island Railroad and there's a vast difference. So I don't know.
It's been that way.
Maybe that's a topic for Cassie. They're seeing it, on the interior and exterior of the cars. There's a vast difference in the Long Island Railroad fleet versus
Better.
the Metro North. fleet.
Metro North.
Metro North by far is substantially
Yeah, because
different.
they could do.
Even on the Hudson line too. I mean, even on the Connecticut.
Connecticut's very powerful.
Windows.
You could see out.
South-facing windows on the Long Island Railroad have been done in. It was terrible.
It's because they don't rotate the notice.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now can I get to the report?
Metro North?
No, not.
We're finishing Metro North?
Oh, I thought it was-
No, Sharon had some.
Karen,
Just if there could be some clarification at Southeast of which trains are going on to Wasaik and which tracks. There's total confusion every time a train comes in and leaves. And new trains come and then they're going back to Grand Central, but no, it's the one going to Wasaik. If they could have some kind of announcement or notification.
I'm gonna send that to, I guess to Andy.
That was brought up last month. They haven't fixed it.
Metro North question, Becky?
I want to say that when we have to go from first of all, Metro North Cares is doing just as good now as Long Island Cares. And I also like the fact that you're on your trains that go to Stanford. I really like that express and I hope they never get rid of it. Because that's just after Grand Central 125th and Stanford. Get fast.
Yeah, I don't think that's on the chopping block.
No, I know, but it's like, no.
She's complimenting it.
We're complimenting.
And we don't know what the state of Connecticut, I brought this up, actually, I had an offline conversation with Kathy. If I should I actually texted her, should I bring up the question about what's going on the New Haven line? And she said no. So hopefully they're working on some resolution with the state not to reduce the funding to the New Haven line.
Mm-hmm.
Well, only thing is the Stanford station, you have to it's a maze to now, but because they're replacing different elevators, like maze. But the Metro North Cares does look for you so that you don't feel lost.
Oh, that's nice.
Just a quick question on the report that you sent us, which I haven't.
No, we want to finish Metro North.
Oh, I thought that was Metro North.
Metro North. Any other?
Item.
I,
I got cornered the other day by a hiking kind of person, a hiker enthusiast.
Oh, I know him.
And anyway, I didn't even say who it was. No, okay. Question he asked me is, why don't Metro North trains stop at some of the hikers' stops on weekdays? And especially in the summer and the fall season,
Appalachian
when a lot of
Trail.
people go up there for leaf peeping and
It's
all
not a
that.
bad idea.
And so it's something maybe should be looked into. We could ask Metro North if they've done any research on this, and because it's something that might well be feasible and
One of these committee meeting?
Well, maybe, I think, let's see if we can find some suggestions for specific stops.
well, it's Manitou and Breakneck Ridge and also Appalachian Trail. Those are the three stops. They can make that, this person, well, they can make them flag stops. If there's nobody there, they don't have to stop. Well, they could, but for many years, I suggested flag stops to Metro North, and they didn't want to have flag stops.
It's either on the schedule.
No, they're not. Yeah, they don't.
So one thing is flag stops don't have to be ADA accessible. That was what I was shooting for when I was pushing this idea.
But
I have to say that in front of Chris.
Yeah, but they,
Someone behind me.
the train crew is, if a person has a ticket for that station, the train crew is gonna know. And then they will make the appropriate announcement that they're stopping that. It's, we talk about it at the committee meeting.
But then what about people who want to get picked up? I think it's on the schedule or it's not.
Well, it has to be.
Yeah.
Sure, it has to be.
It has to be in the schedule, F in front of a flag stop.
Are you serious? All right, anything else on Metro North? But, you see that hand back there?
It would be nice if there was more service to and from State Street Station. Yeah. More service to and from Union Station, State Street Station is sort of like leftovers. That station opened within the last 2 decades. The service to and from it is limited. Why?
What, State Street?
In New Haven, the State Street
Yeah,
Station.
that's Connecticut's.
There's a whole lot of reasons why, yeah, but
It's Connecticut's choice.
Connecticut.
Where the train stop.
Yeah, unfortunately, they have jurisdiction over that.
there are also the Shoreline East trains that stop at State Street. And there's no charge to travel on any train, Metro North or Shoreline East, between New Haven Union Station and State Street Station. So you can ride either one if you need to get from one to the other.
Okay.
Station.
Okay.
All right, there being no other Metro North questions, I'll turn it back over to Lisa, and I think, Rudy had a question, and I believe this lady had a question. right
Before we
behind her.
get to the report, I would like to introduce Jack Connors, who will be very soon, hopefully.
You mean,
Hold on. I'm still in the middle of a sentence. Good. Jack will very soon be our new research and communications associate. Yay, we have some items, but Jack brings with us some great experience. He has worked most recently with Senator Brad Hoyam and Siegel, and has a ton of interest and experience in transportation and legislative matters, and is coming to us to fill in a position that Kara vacated when she became the planning and advocacy manager. So you can have 2 minutes if you'd like to say hi to everybody.
hi.
Hi, everyone.
So I don't know when it's official start date, when your official start date will be, we're still working through some of that, but welcome, and we look forward to having you start. So
What did you do for Brad?
I was a legislative fellow and then committee clerk, and
Legislative fellow from what school?
I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Oh.
So as post-grad, I became his fellow. And then over the summer, I was committee clerk and legislative analyst. That's not easy.
Well, you come from a very good person.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've learned a lot from him. So
Yeah.
really very special.
So we will welcome Jack, and we will miss Ryan.
Now, Ryan, what are you going to be doing now with your master's degree?
I don't know. Well,
Writing his next chapter.
yes, into the wild blue even.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for all that. I think we all should give Ryan a.
Yeah. We'll be doing something for Ryan, and we'll let you know when and what that is. onto the report. We've asked you to supply us with comments, but you can tell us now if you have some specific things, aside from typos, those please send us.
Me first. Because this week I was flat on my back for a couple of days, thanks to my thing and the rain and everything else. I had a chance to read it, the whole thing.
Great.
I read it.
Usually you would hear all kinds of complaint. I just want to say, I have nothing to complain about, nothing to change. And this is me. I have nothing, you'll find out. Or you can ask Brad, he knows. But anyway, no, it was really so well done. I understood it. I mean, but I just want to, for once, not give a complaint, not give a correction, not everything else, but just say it was a person-like job for both of you. Really, it was, very interesting. It was really readable, which usually these things aren't, but so.
That's enough.
I just want to say thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
I'm thanking you.
I think that lady had a.
Several questions.
Rosalind.
I haven't read it yet. It's really long. I'm sure it's wonderful. I just wanted to know before I started that process, how is this what's the intended audience? So who's gonna review it, blah, 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 so that I can look at it from that lens?
Right, so there is an executive summary. So we wanted to make sure that that would be, what's that?
The first 2 pages.
The first 2 pages are the executive summary that encapsulate the key points and recommendations. The intended audience, the intended effect and outcome the intended outcome is to affect change. It's to get the MTA to look at omni integration, or integration between the two commuter rails before Omni gets implemented. So to look at, since it's delayed, let's make it work. Let's figure out what needs to be done to make it a true through ticketing system with a rational, fair policy, both in the shorter pre-Omni lead up and in the longer term post-Omni.
So this is going to the MTA board?
Right now, it's at the MTA. The first step is the MTA fair policy people.
Okay.
Who we met with, the MTA board. Will look at it, but also elected officials.
Okay.
And other stakeholders. I was at an event earlier this week on Long Island and heard some elected officials complaining about the loss of the Atlantic Ticket Weekly and 20-trip ticket. And we said, well, we're working on something. And they said, please share it with us. So I'm planning to share it with Joan McDonald, because it's important that she, who's got that level of expertise, sees it before it gets.
And you'll ask about filling that position?
I'll do that as well. So, we're gonna go to not just the statewide electeds or, the electeds at the state level, but also at the local level, who are the representatives.
That's helpful.
Of the
Thank you.
MTA region.
You and I don't know each other, but let me just tell you the fact that I found it eminently readable, that it made sense. And that had nothing to change or complain. No, really. And I think that you'll find the same thing. It makes sense. What you propose.
Walter, you look like though you have something to say.
Do you need detailed comments on this by tomorrow? I think that's what it said.
If you have them, I believe that the detailed comments have been addressed. If you can provide them, that would be much appreciated.
This is round 2. We've seen this before.
Yes, you've seen this before.
We had
There
a
are,
presentation at PCAC in June, and
Yeah.
you've seen the recommendation document.
And it actually encompassed a lot of the recommendations that we made, at least I think.
yeah,
No, you got it right.
That it encompassed a lot of the recommendations that we made or questions that we had
yeah,
back then.
absolutely.
Which is
That was the
why,
goal.
which is, wow.
And then we met in mid-July with the MTA's fair policy people to talk to them. We shared the initial draft or with some of the recommendations and changes with them. And they had some additional questions, recommendations, and suggested changes. We don't work for them, we work with them. So we incorporated what we thought was appropriate. But some things, are not going to ever take out a weekly city ticket version, just change the timeline for it.
One thing I was put on the table, I am hearing unsolicited, very strong feedback about the new city ticket, the city ticket peak option. People are already adopting to it and finding it and valuing it. So just keep that in mind as we.
Great.
You know,
Great.
while we did lose some things, they are, new things are being embraced.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. That's great to know. Thank you.
Lisa, Carl, can you just, I saw, as I've been reading this on my phone.
Wow.
Yes, thank you, so it's better you said it than me. No, well, this is my new phone, but the question just asking is because I do have some politicians ask me this one question. Can you just tell me what page would be the good page for the reduced fare?
It's on several pages.
That's why,
It's incorporated throughout the report as you've requested.
yeah,
Not just as you've requested, as you suggested, as the good suggestion that you made. It also incorporates suggestions about having better family discounts to encourage more family ridership. Because there's a whole slice of family missing from the fare. It looks at the senior travel in the morning peak. It looks at rationalizing the morning peak between the two railroads.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
That's why, as I said, it
Right.
incorporates so many
Yeah.
other things.
and like it looks at down the road, looking at a per mile kind of, but
Yes.
not doing that now. But talking, figuring out
I love everyone.
how
No,
and make it work.
Can you guys print it before we leave here today, or I'll stop in the office? I would love a printed copy of this just to be able to have.
It's 20 pages.
The version here has not been graphically designed yet. This is
No,
the
no,
text.
just what is on, because I also was reading it on my phone.
So we're just asking that it not be shared at this point.
Yes, don't share.
No, not until you guys tell us when we're ready to go.
Yeah.
I want to make that clear on record.
Okay, so
Alrighty, so
terrific. So we will expect to hear back from what we, as the MTA folks, told them that it's coming and we'll hear back from them. But if next week is the board meeting and they've got briefings and they've got a lot of stuff going on. But we do plan something for right after Yom Kippur in that last week of September. So that we can send Ryan out with a bang and some and a precedent.
Lisa, there is one idea I just thought of. Since this is Ryan's idea, can we make sure we put his name on it?
Of course.
Or, I was gonna say a picture of it.
Well.
Oh, I'm serious, because something like this is.
it'd be great for his resume.
Thank you.
Yes, it would be.
See, you got a second, see, you got another thing.
Ask that,
Okay, great. So if you can send us your comments that you have, that would be much appreciated.
Right, anything else for Lisa?
No.
Oh, sure. Okay.
General business.
Alrighty, well, good. Down to actually, I have to turn this over to Lisa. This would be the
For the
PCA
election.
elections for chair,
Yes.
first vice chair and second vice chair, and then after that, we'll go to old business, new business, and hopefully adjourn in 15 minutes.
Yes, this is the time of year, or the time of every other year, where we hold an election for our chair, first vice chair and second vice chair. And we neglected to do that in June. So that is.
So who are the nominees?
The nominees are.
Same people right here now.
The same people who are already here. This is for the second term for Jerry Bringman as chair, Andrew Albert as first vice chair, and Randy Glucksman as second vice chair. And so the first vote I'm going to ask for is for the nomination for the slate.
Can we nominate the slate?
You nominate the slate.
Move to nominate the slate.
Second,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I do have proxies from Karen, Christie, and Brian, so we have sufficient. And may I have a motion to move the election?
So moved.
so
I
second,
just did that.
That was for the nomination.
I now move the election of the slate as nominated.
Okay.
second,
Is that correct?
Second.
Say it?
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye. No,
Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Congratulations.
Right, we got this for.
This is for a 2-year term.
There's a two-time limit on the.
Yes.
On the R.
They switch.
Yes,
And next
Then they
time,
switch around,
next time you have to vote for
and
something.
then they'll play musical chairs, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Or,
Vote for somebody new.
Okay.
well, that's,
Yeah, depending on what happens, 2 years.
we'll cross that bridge.
Let's not even talk about it. Let's just move on to all the new ones.
Alright, so quickly, any old business anybody needed to bring up? Mr. X, what do you have?
So I had told Channel several times. He needs to stop, suspend the J train on U Street, which isn't wheelchair accessible.
Okay,
Really annoying. Those who use a cane, walker, or wheelchair, particularly the last two. Forcing them to use wheelchair, or forcing them to use your station is forcing them to break it down and get rid of suck like a Generation X.
alrighty, so noted.
Thank you.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah,
Are you taking into account the M train going as far as Delancey, Essex? From Hughes?
Lancy's not accessible.
Oh, he knows that.
Just
What I'm saying is,
hopefully that work is close to done now.
but what I'm saying is, over the years, last 25 years, the J train was suspended below G Street on many weekends.
Yep.
It's been suspended below Marcy Avenue. And as I told John several times, if we can't run across the Williamsburg Bridge, you should suspend it below Marcy Avenue at Hugh Street for the obvious reason. What did he do here? He ignored me every time I told him, that's a bad idea.
I know, I watched.
We have this, yeah, we have that on, we had this conversation as well.
Jared, can I add something for the record? Because there has been an issue because where the J can actually, there is room for them to terminate at Marcy. There, because the switches are between Hughes and Marcy, they have plenty of room to do a double switch there. It doesn't make any sense why there's not enough notices, and I have brought this up to MTA accessibility, and they agree that if that J is gonna be out, they should be cross-honoring customers coming out of Jamaica to use the Long Island Railroad as an option. And they are working on that, so I want to be very clear.
okay.
Thank you.
Aaron?
Could I suggest that there's clarification down around the World Trade Center of what stops where and what the names of the stops are? There was confusion about Rector and Cortland and World Trade and what have you. And could the apps and our people and the signage people clarify that area now that it's getting so much traffic?
The apps now say WTC Cortland, I believe. The app says WTC Cortland
I
for
did.
Cortland.
And I was told,
What app are you using?
I don't know, I have several, and one of them said I had to go on the 2-3, the other one said I had to go on 1. It was total confusion.
Yeah, kind of all, I look at 4 or 5 different ones and pick the one I like best.
May not be right.
Alrighty,
Let me just say, I've been a beta tester for the new MTA app. And there's a world of things that is wrong with it. And I've been telling them, and I'm doing a Zoom call with one of the programmers tomorrow. Face to face. So I will let them know what they have to do to update it and make it really, really usable. But it has the potential to be very good.
Yeah, it has a lot, it does all 3,
Yeah.
but it doesn't do every.
And it's missing some stations. It's missing lots of things. It's
Names and whatever.
It's also
Give you an example. If you tune in to Spring Street Station,
Thank you.
it shows the F there. That was there during a GO, but it's not there all the time. There's just so many things wrong with it.
Especially buses over too.
at this point, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to Lisa for the last 5 minutes or so, and then she can adjourn it. Board members have to go up for a briefing.
We need travel time to get.
We need to get up to the floor. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and again,
Thank you. No, they have to go down.
Lisa will give you another 5 minutes or so.
I'll give you another 5 minutes, I'm gonna give you.
Who's business?
Yeah, thank you. And you come.
Andrew, have fun.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sharon.
Given that the field trips are so educational and edifying, is it possible if we can restrict the number of people that we might, that, the Metro North, we could all go to have the option of visiting, going to other the other groups' field trips.
Yes, when that is feasible, that's something that we do. We were asked to restrict the number for that one. I didn't go myself. I was on an airplane. But it was, yes, we were asked to keep it at a small number that time.
Okay.
But when we can, we will. And I think we have, last year, were you at the,
We did, we had Andrew,
yes, had some other
last year there was a Grand Central Madison.
Grand Central Mass.
Andrew came.
Yeah, and I think there were some other, there were other folks. And so, the problem is that they're in August, tend to be, so.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I know, that's hard with vacation.
Small, and if
Yeah.
we have the option, I still benefit from the bus one.
Yeah,
when we went up.
yeah. We had, the opportunity to see the R211Ts and, action, the through ones, that are 5 cars and together, but again, that's, we can't toot there with a troop, so. But we will see, we'll be mindful of that.
Business yet?
Yeah, Chris, did you have something quick?
No, new business.
Okay.
You can go first.
Yeah, okay.
I'll go first. Our new business. 120 Fisher Station. This year.
Pick a line.
Which line?
That's off.
Okay.
This year. I noticed the bathrooms are inactive, but also saw a sign saying we don't use them, we have a ticket. I created a couple stack. Okay, that's what the problem goes. Before that this big pandemic, which was created by Dracula. It would take chairs, we could sit in. Now there are less. We created like, we shouldn't sit down at the table and relax ourselves. But we're treating like prisoners. Someone, it's up to you and your partners to speak to, Catherine about that, because. Okay. I entered 126 and you're telling me I can't use it without a. That like ticket, and after that, the bat would constantly inactive for years.
Yeah.
That's no excuse for that.
So the issue of seating in stations, something that's raised often. And it's. I'm sure you've heard it said that it's an architectural thing, but what it really is designed to keep people from staying in those facilities. There are a lot of issues surrounding that. You see people on the floor and they're told to get up and move. And that's like not really good if you're waiting for your turn. But
Especially the balance getting damaged.
but that's, as far as the bathrooms at 125th Street, you can raise that with them.
I want to echo what he's saying. I was there recently, and that was my point of origination. And even being a ticket holder, it said that the bathrooms were limited for open use during a very early interval and a very late interval. And for ticket holders, the bathroom was locked. There was no instruction about how to get a key, how to get in during that interim period, when they're open and unrestricted, that period between. So it's still current. So I was there, and the station itself, the lower level, the ground level is dirty and uninviting.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's an organization called Uptown Grand Central that's been trying to work to do something. It's like a little mini bid. That's been working on the area for years, and it's marginally better, but they can't do anything in the station. It's really, it's a big challenge, but I'll definitely take this back.
And the
Both of you have raised.
ticket machines in the other bathroom, and for someone who's not familiar with the layout, it's just maybe not laid out properly.
Yes.
I'll stay with Frank.
It's.
Yeah. Hopefully there will be some improvements when Second Avenue subway work goes through and around and there, and some of the other work, but shouldn't have to wait that long, just like the accessibility work at Bettswell's Point shouldn't have to wait for nothing.
Business?
Chris?
Yes. New business, this is related, because I know Carl, you and I have been dealing with this. And I know I don't know if it's in the book, because I've been looking at it very very quickly. We definitely need to clarify with them with the city tickets, with the machines. We're finding out that not just the Long Island Railroad, but Metro North machines, they're not compelling, saying if I'm going, well, more in the Long Island Railroad, they're not showing the $5 city ticket. If I'm going, like, let's say if I want to go to the Mets game, I want to get there, a little more quicker on the Long Island Railroad. It does not show, it only shows that station. But if I want to go, if I don't want to, since that station is not ADA accessible, if I want to go to Main Street Flushing, they don't show it, the price. So we definitely need to keep that as alert.
Well, so what we have is that the least expensive and best option should be the one that shows, and that's in the report.
Yeah, and I'm just wanted to share that because it's something we all need to keep our eyes
So
on.
whenever Ryan's taken endless number of photos and screenshots of screens.
Too.
But yeah,
You have to know to look for it.
you have to go
Exactly.
through 2 or 3 screens. It ain't easy.
There are requisite flow charts in there, and yes, they are about as spiderwebby as you would expect.
You mean Spider-Man?
Spiderwebby.
Like,
Yes, from what Chris is saying, last Sunday, I took the Long Island Railroad from my neck of the woods, which is Far Rockaway. I was hoping I would get charged for a city ticket. I didn't see none.
you have to go, there's a special ticket, the Far Rockaway ticket. You can only get, it geolocates your phone if you're buying it online. Or you can only get it from a ticket machine at that station.
I don't know what you're talking about, train time.
Yes,
Train
the
time.
e-tix, right? But you have to be at that station in order to buy it.
Correct.
You can't buy it here to get there. You need to buy it there. No, at Far Rockaway Station.
Okay, when I use train, okay.
Yeah, and buy it on an e-tix or on the machine.
The reduced fare will still be, the conductors do, when you hold your reduced fare and you're doing the city ticket, they do give you the city ticket. For the reduced fare customers.
But Far Rockaway is a whole different thing that's being implemented now and not all the conductors may know about yet.
And that's the thing I think we just said, you
Yeah.
gotta keep your alert up.
Yeah.
And another thing,
Oh, and I'm sorry, you also have to have your location services on your phone
At Far Rockaway.
at Far Rockaway in order for it to know that you're there to sell you that ticket.
She's right.
On a round trip, it's only good a day.
Yeah. Or one way, but don't, yeah.
Correct.
I was gonna say the buses that runs into the Rockaways, run into the Rockaways and goes into the Rockaway. I don't hear you email that Robbie, I live in a Q113 one. No transfer points. None. At every stop that stops. No transfer points. I mean, I hear transfer, I hear it saw a transfer point on the Q111.
Are there transfer points?
Yes, there's transfer points on the Q111.
Are there transfer points on the Q113?
No,
There aren't any.
no.
So then they shouldn't announce.
Not just on the 113, 114.
Are there transfer points?
No.
Is there the ability to transfer? So then if you can't transfer, then they wouldn't announce.
They announced it well on the Q111.
So you're saying that they're not making announcements when they should? Where there are places to transfer?
I mean, they only make announcements on the stops.
Okay, all right, we'll take a look at that. Okay. Okay, all right. All right, I think at this point we need a motion. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
I said motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please send us your comments at Lozano Tolo to those of you who celebrate a happy new year. So, thank you for joining.
Anybody wants any of the printouts, you could have a printout.
And we'll email you copies of the presentations also.
That one, yeah.
The minutes, this is the chair's report.
I'd like to have that one.